Hi, Book2, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie. So, I just filmed this video yesterday, but I decided that I didn't really like what I filmed. And, I might not even do anything that drastically different with this version, but I decided to just refilm it. This is kind of an update, but kind of also more of a talking about some of my, once again talking about my reading projects. I have a new one that I've kind of mentioned briefly in previous videos that I'm working on, and I've collected more books to apply to like my American history reading project. Um like and I'll elaborate more on that after I'm done with the others part. But first, I want to update. I'm going to go ahead and update you guys on my reading. So I just finished Alloy of Law, by Brandon Sanderson. I guess I'm considered the sixth book in the Mistborn series. It's the second era, and I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I know not everybody loves it. Some people still prefer the original trilogy, and starting with the final Empire. And I still love those. I mean, I need to reread them though. It's been a long time. But I had fun with this first book in this new series. It's kind of a early 1900s Western type story. More fast paced, more adventurous. I loved Wax and Wayne's dynamic. It was really fun. And the whole time I'm reading this, I'm actually thinking of the movie Wild Wild West with Will Smith and Kevin Kline, and Kenneth Branagh and Selma Hayek. That dynamic, it kind of reminded me of that dynamic a little bit. I mean, they're still very different, but there are some vague similarities from what I remember of that movie. It has been years since I've watched it, but it felt very much similar vibes to that movie from what I remember. And I just had a fun time with it, and I recently watched Shades of Orange. She's a horror sci-fi reader mostly, and with fantasy. And she did a video on planning out your thing, how you decide what you're gonna read, planning out your TBR and everything. And she actually brought up something that does apply. She brought up something. Well, a lot of the video applied to me, but she brought up this whole thing about series where you will read a first book in a series, but then you won't come back to the next book unless you read it like right away. You might not come to the next book for months or years at a time. And that was a habit I was trying to break because I do that all the time. And she said something which I probably already know, which is that just get to the next book right away. And if you didn't love the first book, which there are a couple series where there was the Vagrant Gods trilogy. I enjoyed the first book after I read it, but then it just kind of left my mind and I never bought book 2, so I just kind of let it go. But there are other series that I'm trying to make sure I don't do that, and that's where Thrift Books has come in. It's helped me to buy the next book, because sometimes Books A Million doesn't always have the next books in a series. And of course, my used bookshop, The Outpost, doesn't have a huge selection when it comes to fantasy books. And so there's not always a guarantee I'm not going to find all the books in a series. I mean, there might be like Ken Follett. I have no problem finding his books there. Or I keep seeing Philip Gregory's books, for instance, with her Tudors Queen series, and then there's the Poldark series, although I have not seen the first book in that series, but I did see all those books there, and I probably helped a lot with I helped with that because I brought the books I got from a thrift store where my sister lives. I bought one of the books from that, and then I brought it to them because it wasn't the first book, and I decided, I don't like doing that. I don't like buying a book in a series that's in the middle of the series, because then I can't read that right away. I have to wait until I can come across the previous books. But yeah, so I was thinking about that, and actually, when I originally filmed this video, I was saying that hopefully I can get to it before the end of August, but I don't think that's gonna happen because I'm kind of focused on a certain my newest book project, and that is not part of it. Is not that does not relate to that, and so what I think I'm going to do is make sure I read it in the beginning of September when and make sure. And there's like two other they're not even series, they're trilogies that I gotta make sure. And one of them I just brought down. One of them can technically apply to my book project in a way. And the other one doesn't apply necessarily, but I do want to get to it. And I have all the books in that trilogy now. I've got thanks to Thrift Books. Because it's very, like, it's, I have more of a chance of getting all of them. But the only problem with Thrift Books is it's still, like, it's still kind of, it's not, like, it's cheaper. Everything is under $10. I mean, on their ads, they say it's under $5. But if you want to buy a book that's in new condition, like new, or a hardback book, it's going to be more than $5. So those ads are kind of like, every time I watch those ads, I'm thinking, you guys are lying. Because if you want to buy a book that's in new condition, is like new, or if you want to buy a hardback edition, there's no guarantee it's going to be under $5. It might be under $10, but it's not under $5 as, yes, there's a lot of books that are probably under $5, but it depends on the book. There's no guarantee that every book is under $5 on Thrift Books. I know it's a marketing thing and everything, but I just, that annoys me because I feel like they're lying. They're just trying to get you to use their website, which is fine. Like I said, it's a marketing thing, and I love their website. I really like using it. I mean, I'm also on Book Outlet, but I always go to Thrift Books, which Book Outlet, their ads say a similar thing, but their ads might be a little more honest. I would have to go on there again, but I'm so used to going to Thrift Books, Thrift Books, it's just easier for me to go there, even if it could potentially be cheaper on Book Outlet. But anyway, so I need to make sure, I'm trying to break the habit of taking too long with a series. But it's a struggle. But okay, so anyway, I also finished The Moonstone, which I personally like that story better than The Woman in White. It still took me not as long as The Woman in White because it's a bit longer, it's a chunkier book. But it still took me a little bit, it was still slow going with The Moonstone. But it's kind of cool to read an early detective story. And although there were chunks of the book that I felt like were unnecessary to the book, that Wilkie Collins did not need to indulge himself with, but I still had a good time with the book. And even those sections could be entertaining for me and amusing, like there's one character, Miss Clack, who's very religious, and you know how those people can be. And she's not like crazy controlling about it, but she is one of those very pushy people that's trying to get you to convert to her belief system. And that can be amusing, but can also be a mixture of amusing and entertaining. Like it can be if you're the person that they're trying to push, and I'm sure that they mean well in their own way, but yeah. So anyway, I enjoyed that, and I did my written review of that. I have not done a review on BookTube, but maybe I will. I don't know. I might just talk about it during my wrap up, which by the way, one of the things I mentioned when I first filmed this, and I'm going to mention here, I'm still including it, is that I'm probably not going to do a wrap up at the end of the month. I'm just going to do a bi-monthly, which was something I had planned to do previously, but then, I gave up on it. So I'm going to try that again in the last half of the year, do bi-monthly wrap-ups instead, because I was feeling, again, the motivation for that is I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling pressured to make sure I have a good chunk of books to talk about for you guys. And I know I don't have, and yes, I don't have to worry, I don't have to do that necessarily. So it's more me, like I'm putting pressure on myself. But the only way I'm gonna take that pressure off is, I'm hoping is if I try to again do a bi-monthly wrap-ups. And I would do quarterly wrap-ups, but then I'm gonna forget everything that I read. I try to limit how many books I read, but then I'm just keep adding on to that list because I'm like, I want to read this one and I want to read this one. It's not even because of people I'm, talking about. It's not even that. It's more I'm just looking at my shelf. But anyway, so, and then I think, is that all of the books now? I think that's it of all the books I've read so far. Not so far in the whole month. I mean, there's more books I haven't read. There's a couple more other books that I've read at the beginning of this year. The beginning of August, but currently this week. So right now, I am reading the next book I picked up was Pompeii. This was a Steve Donahue recommendation. This was a book that he recommended for beginners to historical fiction. And one of the reasons being that it does give you some facts about volcanoes, because I'm sure you can guess by the title what this is about. Pompeii and Mount Vesuvius. And he does at the beginning of each chapter, I'm just going to call them chapters because they're not labeled as chapter 1, chapter 2, or like their titles are, their titles are obviously based on the countdown of until Volcano Day. So we have our main character, Marcus Attilius. And forgive me, I'm probably going to be butchering these Roman names and terms, unless I already heard them by someone who is more of an expert than I am on Rome. So Marcus Attilius, he is the new aqueduct to the town of Messinius. I don't know if I'm saying that again. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but like it's a town near Pompeii, so the book does not start out in Pompeii. And it turns out, well, first of all, the previous Aquarius quit, or he left. So they have this new guy come along to check out the water system in their city, and he knows that there's something, and he's just a guy trying to do his job. He knows that something's up with the water, and he's trying to figure out why. But the guys that work for him, because they like the other guy better, and I think they had maybe a personal relationship with the other guy, they're a little hostile to Attilius. They don't trust him. They think he's being foolhardy about this, and he's worried about nothing because this guy Corax, he's been doing this for 20 years, so he knows the system by the back of his hand. So he thinks the other guy, this new guy, is being ridiculous. And it's just not really helping him. But so meanwhile, one of the again, I'm just gonna say for the sake of argument, I'm gonna call him a nobleman. He has his own man-made fish pond, and his fish end up dead, and he blames the slave. He believes it's the fault of the slave who was supposed to feed and take care of the fish. And so he decides to punish him by feeding him to his pet eels. And the slave's mom knows that it wasn't his fault, that it was actually, there was something wrong with the water. It is poisoned. So she goes to the daughter of the slave owner, and this, pleading with her, being like, my son is innocent. He didn't do anything wrong. He's not the responsible for the fish being dead. So they go to the new aquarium, to Marcus Attilius, and he goes, and he figures out that the water is he's the one to figure out the water is poisoned. and it tastes like sulfur. So he knows something's up with the water. So he ends up he finally convinces the slave owner that, okay, we need to fix this problem. It's not your slave's fault. Of course, it's too late. The slave young man is killed. He was eaten by the eels, and they got him out, but he got poisoned by the sulfur tasting water. So I don't even think they finished eating, the eels didn't really even finish eating him. So they send Marcus Attilius to Pompeii, which they find out that the water in Pompeii is still working. So he wants to figure out why that water is working, but all the other towns around Pompeii, their water systems are not working. And that's basically the plot of this whole, and there's a couple of hint of subplots with like this slave owner who was a former slave himself is opening his actual main home is in Pompeii, and he wants to open a Roman baths, which that was like a hangout place. It was like a sauna, like it's like going to the pool or something, or like a rec center with and he's even trying to make a deal with Attilius, but Attilius, he has stronger morals than that. He's not having, and he knows, he's warned by this guy's daughter that you don't want to get trapped by my father and be used by him. So he's trying not to make a deal, but the slave owner guy, he knows that Attilius is smart. He knows water, and he knows there's value in him, in his profession. But like in Corax, there was definitely something going on, something between him and the previous guy, who was the Aquarius. I think, I don't know what, but there's definitely some. They're not like, Attilius keeps asking about the previous guy, but they're not telling him. No one wants to talk about it. They're all like, they're giving him such a hard time, and I'm getting really annoyed by these people giving him such a hard time, because Attilius is just trying to do his job. Like, Corax may have been running this water system for 20 years, but Attilius has been doing his job probably about the same time, maybe even, he knows the water systems. He's kind of an expert on this kind of stuff. But as I'm reading this, because I know that Vesuvius is going to erupt any day now, I just keep thinking about that and thinking, you guys have no idea what's going to happen. Like, they, of course, wouldn't understand about the whole, I don't think they would understand about the whole idea of a volcano and how that all works and stuff. And actually, reading this made me think of this book, made me think of the episode of Doctor Who, where the Doctor and Donna go back in time to Pompeii, and they make friends with this one particular family, and they try to warn them about Pompeii. And, Donna even convinces the Doctor to help this family. And their daughter is recruited for the priesthood, so she kind of prophesizes the volcano happening. But they don't know what her prophecy. They don't understand her prophecy. So she's kind of a Cassandra figure, in the story. Although people, it's not that they purposely don't believe her. It's just they don't understand, in that episode. But yeah, it's so interesting to read this, knowing what's going to happen, knowing the history of Pompeii, what's going to happen. This volcano, it makes it almost a very sad story. And of course, I don't know if any of these characters are based on real people. Some of them maybe. So if some of them are actual real people, then they might not make it out. Like, I don't know who's gonna make it out or not. I'm wondering if anyone's gonna survive this, because this thing happens so fast. But yeah, so and I do appreciate that the drama, there is drama, but it's not as like, it doesn't have as much romance. It doesn't really have any romantic drama. There's maybe possibility of it, but I think it's kind of like they don't Robert Harris doesn't have time to waste on that, on the romance in the story, because Volcano Day is happening. And this guy is just focused on trying to do his job and figure out what's going on with the water. And of course, he doesn't know about Volcano Day. There was I just had it, but I cannot remember what I was going to say next. But yeah, so I'm liking this. Is really good. It is a bit slow going, but I'm having a good time with this. So also, I did start reading the Pillow book. I did finally come back to it. Fortunately, I made the mistake of telling, this is a gift from Terry, and I told her, and it was on my wish list, so it's not, so she knew I wanted it. And I remember I made the mistake of telling her I had to restart and reread the 22 pages I read, because I did start this after I got it, which I think was a Christmas gift in either 2024 or 2023. And I finally came back to it. I mean, I started reading it after Christmas, or maybe in the springtime or whatever. But I was reading it when I was at my grandmother's, and as I've vented before about that, there can be just as many distractions, just different kinds of distractions, than going to my sister's, that it was kind of it was sometimes hard to concentrate on the book. And then also, sometimes I have trouble finding a comfortable reading spot at my grandmother's house. So when I told Terry that, she thought I meant that I didn't like the book. And it's like, no, and I had to tell her, and I felt so bad. I was like, no, that's not what I meant. I enjoy it. I don't want her to feel bad and think that she bought me a book that I ended up not liking. You know, that's not true. I mean, like, I'm enjoying this. So I did let her know. I was like, okay, I did not mean that. I didn't mean I didn't like it. It's just, there are sometimes where a book, it's just not the right timing, or like I get distracted by other books. So finally I got past the 22 pages, and this is kind of like a diary. Like, it's basically this woman's diary was, and in a, you know, being a diary, of course, it wasn't meant to be published into a book, but I think it's really good for getting to know the culture of Japan, especially during it's between the years 966 to 1017. I'm seeing it, sorry, I'm trying to see if this, well, I'm just gonna say, because I don't know how to pronounce I guess, Hainian Empire, period. I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm just gonna say classical Japan. So there's a lot of focus on art and poetry and nature. So I think it's around the same time as the Tale of Genji, but it doesn't just Tale of Genji focus on the romantic exploits, I think, of Genji. Although I did read an abridged version of the Tale of Genji, so maybe there's a lot more to the story, but I feel like it was just focused on his romantic exploits, and like, I didn't mind reading it, I still liked it, but I kind of prefer this. So far, I'm liking this one a little bit more. You know, it's talking about court life, and she talks about the beauties of Japan, and comparing it to China. And now there is, like, of course, men spying on women, and oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say about Pompeii. That's right. So let me finish talking about this one, then I'll mention what I'm going to say about Pompeii. And there's a little bit of, there is a male character that I think he's like a governor or something, that she really likes and respects, and they really understand each other. And I'm wondering if there's going to be something going on between the two of them, because that starts a good, you know, a friendship is a good romantic relationship. You know, yeah, it might not be as entertaining to read, but it's a healthy kind of relationship if you start out as friends. But yeah, so I'm liking this, and I also like her parts on where she talks about the things that irritate her, that annoy her, which it was really funny and very relatable. So relatable, the things that annoy her. And then she also does the things that make her sad, make her discouraged. So it's a mix of that kind of stuff, and then talking about nature and poetry and the beauty of the world around her, and then what happens during, her day to day at court. Okay, so the other thing I want to say about Pompeii was that because of the time period, what we know about how a lot of time women were treated in these time periods, there is a bit of, misogyny and the way, like, these men thinking these women are not as smart as them, and it's, and yeah, I admit it does bother me, but you know what, I still like reading these historical fiction works, and it's just a part of it, and it's not great. I wish it hadn't been that way, but as long as we, always try to strive for betterness, to be better, and all we want is to be treated with respect and seen as equal. Like, yeah, women and men have their differences. There are certain things that we can't do that men can do, and there's things that we do that men can't do. And that's the thing about historical fiction. You're gonna get a lot of that, especially if it's trying to be as close to the time period. It's not gonna always be female empowerment. That's not how it was back then. So yeah, there is comments that these male characters make that isn't great. But anyway, so those are, and then the last book I'm currently reading is, where is it? I did start reading a little bit of this again today, which is Catherine of Aragon, the true queen, the one true queen. This is Henry's first wife. And I almost bought, because today I went to the Outpost bookshop, and I almost bought Antonia Fraser's book, which is about the 6 wives of Henry. It's her nonfiction. I almost bought it, but then it was hardback, and hardbacks there are $5, and it would be $20 if I bought 2 books. So I decided not to, although I got a $5 discount. So after the fact I paid for my books, the ones I did get, I'm like thinking I should have gone back and got see if I could get the Antonia Fraser book for less than $20. Which, yeah, that is pretty cheap. Like, $20 is not that bad. I mean, you get one book for $20 at Books A Million, so that's pretty good, it's used. But still, I didn't want to spend $20 on 2 books. Like, I mean, again, yes, it's not that bad, but still, I mean, I would rather potentially spend $20 on more than 2 books would be nice. And like I said, I almost thought about going back because I did get a discount, because I did sign up for the reward system at the bookstore since I shop there all the time, and I got $5 off, so I ended up spending like $3. Which is really nice, and that's why I thought, I should have see if I could get the other book, the hardback Antonia Fraser book, but I could always either get that, put that on my wish list for Christmas, or get it on Thrift Books. Like, I don't have to have it, like, right now. And I don't even have all the books in this series. But, I mean, and maybe I should just stick to, and, maybe I should even get Alison Weir's take on the wives, since I have 3 of her books anyway, so. We got to the point where, okay, right now, are kind of, like, Catherine's kind of being put on hold. She's kind of having to wait around. She doesn't know what's going on. And she's just sitting there and being kept in her room, and she doesn't know who to trust. Like, she's hearing different stories from different people. Like, her duenna is telling her one thing, and this Dr. Pablo who is her kind of the representative of Spain, he's telling her something different, so she doesn't know who to trust between the two of them. And Henry might want, he wants a relationship with Spain, an alliance with Spain. And her sister Juana, and Catherine's sister Juana, is married to Philip. I don't know which one. I don't know if there's more than one, but Philip, and he very much runs things. Like, Catherine realizes when her sister comes to visit that her sister is very devoted to her husband, and she's not as assertive as their mom was. So Catherine is kind of worried about her sister. And that's why, kind of like what's going on, her sister being married to that guy, is why she's kind of being pushed aside right now. But then Philip dies, and Henry VII is thinking about marrying Catherine's sister, and so she has mixed feelings about that, I think, where on the one hand it would be great to have her sister as the Queen of England, but then it's like she knows how it would kind of suck being forced to marry this old guy, this Henry VII, who's old dude by now. And she's also kind of hurt that she's being ignored. She doesn't understand, and she's running out of money. And so it's kind of a messy situation for her. And I'm curious, like I said, I'm curious to know how accurate those parts are. I'll have to look up, maybe, like, I know my sister actually sent me, I haven't seen any documentaries, but I know that my sister did send me a series of videos that talk about the six, I think they talk about the 6 wives on YouTube, and I decided to save the playlist, so I will watch that, and I feel like I should watch it soon, because I'm going to be seeing my sister soon, so I want to be able to tell her, I want to be able to tell her that I watched it before I see her. And maybe there will be a video on Catherine, which would be nice, so that I can know if this stuff is historically accurate. I mean, Alison Weir is a historian, but there have been some people there's one person who did make a comment how they are kind of disappointed with her, that she took a lot of liberties. She's taken liberties, and she's a historian. This person wanted something that was a little more historically accurate. But again, this is historical fiction. Historical fiction isn't going to always be 100% accurate. It's meant to be just entertain you, engage you, and sometimes they have to change things for the sake of an entertaining, dramatic story. Sometimes they have to change history a little bit. I mean, come on, like Sound of Music, I know is not accurate to the real family history, because it is based on the Von Tramps are a real family that existed. And then The Greatest Showman also is not accurate to who P.T. Barnum was. I mean, P.T. Barnum was kind of an asshole in real life and was exploiting these people. But with that one, I kind of figured that with that one that it wasn't going to be. I mean, it would be nice to believe that he was more like Hugh Jackman portrays him, but nope, and I'm not surprised by that. But yeah, these historical fiction, whether it's a musical or like a book. Now, if it's a non-fiction, like, I can kind of understand where people are getting like pissy about the whole Hamilton, particularly Ron Chernow's book, because of course it's non-fiction, and that might be wrong. I don't know if that's how, because people have said that there are things he got wrong, and I did look it up where it might have been wrong. Granted, is his biography on Hamilton is very accurate, and I have seen it at the Outpost. I have thought about buying it, and it is a paperback version, so but I have that one on audio, and And anyway, so I'm enjoying this, and I want to keep going with and I cannot wait to get the next book, which will be about Anne Boleyn. And I definitely want to get all of them. I did not realize how many movies are based on Henry, or about King Henry VIII and his wives. Like, there's another one, there's movies and series, not just the Tudors. And there was one that recently came out called Firebrand that was about his last years of life in his marriage to Catherine Parr, which the historian who was looking at those movies, because there's videos on YouTube where historians will look and talk about how accurate they are, and she talked about the Firebrand, which I think is a movie, and she said there aren't really any movies about Catherine Parr, the last wife of Henry, but that one is about her. And it is a bit of a feminist revenge story, apparently. But anyway, so I'm going to read a little bit of this today, probably. And, of course, Pompeii as well. I'll read that one. Okay, now that I've updated you guys, let's get to the reading projects. So, my newest reading project I'm thinking about that I mentioned already is medieval history. I want to look into, and I particularly focus on the Tudors and the Plantagenets. And you've already seen me haul some books for that. And I did get some other books for that time period today. Well, really, actually one could technically be. Actually, now I think about it, neither book applies to that. But one of the books I got was this one, Antonio Fraser. So I saw another Antonio Fraser book. This is Antonio Fraser's Love in Louis XVI, The Woman in the Life of the Sun King. So this is about the Louis XVI, which, so it was one of these things where, it has color pictures, painting and stuff. So when I decided not to get that Antonio Fraser book, about Henry's wives, I went back to look to see if there was any chance of anything else I might be interested in. And I saw this one. And I kind of I liked movies like the Three Musketeers and The Man in the Iron Mask, so Dumas movies on this time period, and so I saw this, I thought it'd be fun to kind of I wonder if this is actually originally comes from the UK. I'll have to, yeah, this might come from the UK. That'd be cool. So it might be a British cover, which would be really awesome, because a lot of times, yeah, you guys in England have better covers. I hate to say it, but yeah, you do. Not always. There are some American covers I like. And I love all my books, but how they look, but yeah, there are times where the UK has better covers. It's just, I still have to worry about a shipping fee when I get a book from the UK. And I've only been to the UK once. What's nice, which I kind of envy Caroline Marie. She just got married to a guy that's from England, so she gets to go to the UK a lot, and she's currently there right now. She just went back. Like, she now partly lives there. And now she gets those beautiful UK covers for her books. But anyway, so this is, it does apply to the whole medieval Europe, but it doesn't apply to medieval England. It has some great pictures in it, colored pictures, and I'm excited to read this. And then the other book I got doesn't apply to this project, but does apply to my other project, which is my project on reading about American history. So, on one of the podcasts I watch, there's an episode on Lincoln in the night he got shot, his assassination, by John Wilkes Booth. They did an episode on that, and those 2 days, the night he got shot, in the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth. And I also this morning listened to an episode on my walk that was about what if he hadn't got shot, and I haven't finished it yet, but I didn't listen to all the stuff he would have to worry about and what was going on at the time. So I've been kind of thinking about Lincoln and the Civil War. So I didn't look for like the book Killer Angels or anything like that. I mean, I thought about that. I bought that before, but my brother-in-law does have the book Killer Angels, although it's a mass market. But he does have it, so if I never spotted it there, I can always borrow it from my brother-in-law. But anyway, I think, actually no, it might not be a mass market. It might be a regular size paperback. Because I think I borrowed it from them before. Unless I bought it. I can't remember. But anyway. So I got this. So I went there and looked for a book on Lincoln. And there's a couple books there on Gettysburg. Which I already have a book on Gettysburg. It's not like Gettysburg and Lincoln. There were quite a few books about Lincoln and Gettysburg. Which the book on Gettysburg, which I have it here, we'll talk about that, but this is a biography, and, well, first I thought it said volume 1, but it actually says 1 volume edition, so I guess it maybe originally came in multiple volumes, but this is Abraham Lincoln, the Prairie Years and the War Years. So originally published in So it was originally published in 6 volumes, which sold more than 1 million copies. Carl Sandburg's Abraham Lincoln was praised as the most noteworthy historical biography of Sandburg's generation. He later distills this monumental work into 1 volume that critics and readers alike consider his greatest work of nonfiction, as well as the most distinguished authoritative biography of Lincoln ever published. Growing up in an Illinois prairie town, Sandburg listened to the stories of old-timers who had known Lincoln. By the time this single-volume edition was completed, he had spent a lifetime studying, researching, and writing about our 16th president. His extraordinary portrait brings fully to life the country lawyer who would become one of the most influential and beloved presidents of the American Republic. And oh my god, there's a lot of those presidents were lawyers. You notice that? A lot of our presidents were lawyers beforehand, which, even Hamilton was a lawyer. And he didn't even become a president, but he's a lawyer. Which is probably why the Federalist Papers, he takes a lot of words just to say one simple, statement about the Constitution and explaining what it is. And trying to persuade people to appreciate it and understand it, convince them it's good. And he uses a lot of words just to simply say, this is what it does, this is what this means. He's essentially, a lot of times it feels like he's repeating itself. But I guess he's a lawyer. But yeah, there were a lot of lawyers with the presidents. So Carl Sandburg, he died in the 60s, but this came out, he was born in the early 1800s, so yeah, he would have been around the time that Lincoln, or just after Lincoln. But yeah, I'm excited to read this. But yeah, this would apply, and actually, so there, on the podcast, they mentioned this book. They mentioned this one, American Brutus, on the podcast, so all of a sudden I was like, I want to read that book. But this is actually, obviously, this is a book about John Wilkes Booth. I didn't just recently bought this. I bought this a couple years ago. And because it was the only, it wasn't a book about Lincoln, but it was about the guy who killed Lincoln. So I thought that would be interesting to read. All about the guy who, and there's actually, there was that book, Booth, that was about John Wilkes Booth's family that I did start to read, but I ended up DNFing it. And, I think I might give that one another shot after I read this book. We will see. But yeah, so I will come back to those in a minute. First, let's talk about my medieval project. So I'm thinking, well, first off, here's one combination of books I could read, which is Alison Weir's book on Elizabeth, her fiction book on her, in her history. I think it's fiction. And then we also have this one, her Elizabeth's works, her collected works, which I did not know this existed. I didn't know someone had put together all of her writings. So I think this will be kind of fun to read, like what, her thoughts and stuff and her intentions. I think this will be so much fun to read this and read these two together if I can. I mean, I've tried that before and it didn't go well, but I could try again. In both those books, so I tried to read The Stand and Station 11 together, but Station 11 is a lot shorter than The Stand. And granted, this book, isn't as long as, but this is also a collection of this woman's writings, so it's not a traditional book. So, this is a great combination. And, as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about other combinations of books I can read together for a reading project. Like, there's also, I did think about this project reading. I have a Marilyn Monroe biography, but I also have a Marilyn Monroe the book Blonde, which is kind of a fictionalized version of Marilyn Monroe's life, by Joyce Carol Oates. So I was thinking those two could be read together. And then to go along with my American history, I have I've accumulated and acquired books on John Adams and, his wife and their family and stuff. And there's, a book, I have that book about his cousin that came out recently. And then today there was a book of John Quincy Adams that was a little bit shorter, but it was a hardback, so it's still paying $5. Granted, that discount, which I didn't know, I was capable of getting today. But anyway, so here are some other options. I have some nonfiction, I have quite a bit of nonfiction as well. First we have the English Civil War. So this is after the medieval times. This is when the Stuarts were. It was the Stuart dynasty. And I could read, these two could actually go together because there is this whole issue with the church and everything, and this whole part of the conflict of the Civil War was, I think, Catholics versus Protestants, trying to decide what England was, if they were a Protestant country or a Catholic country. And I think this book focuses a lot on religion and how religion influenced. Yeah, because the pre-Reformation period, it covers the pre-Reformation in Catholicism. And I think that Middlemarch is around that time period, actually. Because they talk about, because they mentioned the Reform Bill. So I think that might have been around the same time period. Might have been, I think. I don't know. I'll have to double check on that. But, if any of you have read Middlemarch, maybe you can tell me. But I think it is around the same time period. But yeah, you can read these two together. But they're both big nonfiction reads, so. Okay, and then we have some other nonfiction, which you guys have already seen. We have the books on the Plantagenets. You know, this one, and then we have The War of the Roses, which is, it's kind of sequel. These are both by Dan Jones. So I got these at Books A Million, and I didn't buy the, you know, it was between these and the Secret Lives of the Tudors, which actually Shelley Swearingen brought that book up. And this, which, speaking of her, my reading project, I was already thinking about reading projects because this is something that Jared Henderson talked about, but in doing that, in his talking about that in his video, How to Read Better, instead of prioritizing reading more books, he talked about ways to read better, to improve your reading, and to, you know, be more focused on what you are reading, not so focused on buying more books, says the girl who has done a book haul recently. Just bought 2 books today. And so Shelley Swearingen did a video recently that I watched. It was one of her 50 videos, a project that she was doing where she wanted to do a series of 50 videos. And one of her videos was on reading projects, which, like I said, I was already doing. So I watched it to see what she had to say, how she likes them, how she enjoys doing them. And that inspired me to do this video, to kind of update you guys. So there's those 2. And actually, the reason why I bring that up is also she has the book, The Secret Lives of the Tudors, that she hasn't read yet. And that was a book that I considered buying at the time. But then, I decided I want to focus on the Plantagenets and The War of the Roses. So the next one is Richard III. This one was, you know, I've already talked about, this was inspired by Jennifer Brooks. And I wonder, Jillian Murray Kendall, I wonder if she's his wife or his daughter. I'm kind of curious about that, who she is to him. But I'm excited. I keep wanting to read this, but I'm like, okay, let me read these other ones first. And then The Princess in the Tower is Alison Weir's take on that, talking about that history. So this is another, you know, again, for my project of potential books that I can read. And then I also want to show you some fiction books that I have. Okay, so we have the Canterbury. I grabbed this one because it's the same time period. The Canterbury Tales. I'm meaning to reread. We read this for the British literature class that I took in 2018. I wanted to reread it on my own. This is basically these guys go on this pilgrimage, and to pass the time, to decide to tell some stories. They will tell stories on the way there to Canterbury, and they will tell stories on the way back. And Chaucer never got to finish this. But I've been wanting to reread it, and I know it's, you know, how funny it is. It is a good translation. I'm curious about the one that I got from I don't know, what's the one that I got from that I borrowed for the class? I don't remember. It'd be funny if it turns out it was this one, but I don't think it was this translation, because I remember still struggling to read and understand what was going on. And it, you know, I ended up skipping one of the stories, which was a big mistake, because that story for that night's reading assignment for the next class was one she decided to do a pop quiz on. So I did really bad. But I was already out of school anyway. I was just taking the class for fun, so it wasn't the end of the world for me. I mean, I was ashamed a little bit and felt guilty. But it didn't, you know, affect I still got a, you know, B for that class or whatever. But I'm going to attempt to reread it. Probably read that. I mean, you know, I feel like I should read that story, which I think it was the Lady of Bath or something. I think that was the one. That was the story. So I need to read. I think I should read that one first, because that's the one I skipped. But I want to, but that's why I'm showing you this, because it's the same time period. I think it would be a good read for that project. And then we have, this is the sequel to one of the series that I mentioned that has a connection to, refers to what I was talking about before, where I use third books for series. And this is the second one in the trilogy. This is of the Raven King. So it's before the setting, before that time period. This particular one, I mean, I think the original Robin Hood story takes place during the time of the first, I think, Richard the First and Prince John, and I think this takes place before that time period. And that's where the author decided King William the Red, and it takes place in Wales. So it's a part of England, but I think it's in Wales instead of. And like I said, so in a way it's part of it, but it's a little it's a different, probably more I guess that would make it this the 1200s possibly, or maybe the early 1300s. I don't know, but yeah, I wanted to show you because it still applies to this reading project. And then we have, so the last two books I want to show you for this project. Okay, so you guys have already seen this. This is a autobiography of Henry VIII, with notes by his fool, Will Summers. But this is a novel. It is not a real autobiography by Margaret George. So, and I just found this so funny that there was a fake autobiography, a novel that was set up like an autobiography of Henry, what he would say if he wrote an autobiography of his life. But of course he never did, because he died before he could, and I don't even know if he could, if he had the skills to write a biography about themselves. But yeah, I thought this would be fun to read, because I don't have a biography of him yet, but I would like to get one at some point, even if I just get one. But yeah, I thought this would be really fun to read, and just what Margaret George comes up with that he would be thinking about himself, what he would write about himself if he was able to write an autobiography about his life. I just thought that would be very entertaining to start with. Okay, and then the last is, I want to come back to Wolf Hall. This is the Thomas Cromwell trilogy by Hilary Mantel. And this is when, I think this takes place when first we get Thomas Cromwell when he was a kid, and how he ran away from home and got himself to court and everything, and about his relationship with the king, how he became his most important advisor, and the whole thing with, and I think this introduces Anne Boleyn, but I think Bring Up the Bodies probably covers Anne Boleyn's downfall, I think. I don't know. But a lot of people love this. This was one that both Steve Donahue and Shelley Swearingen would recommend, although they don't recommend it for early historical fiction readers. And the writing style was a little confusing at first. The way this is written, it's present tense, and it's just, I was a little confused of what was going on. I admit, and I did wonder if it was because I didn't know a lot about Thomas Cromwell. I mean, I knew he was a lawyer and he was an advisor to King Henry VIII. And I know he was tied to the whole Anne Boleyn situation, and so I definitely want to pick it up now and start reading it again soon, and probably sooner rather than later, because I don't want this to be start reading and then put it back on my shelf and never come back to it. So we will see. So what I would want to do is go through all these and pick a handful of them to focus on right now. Okay, so the other project I mentioned was the American History Project, and I would take down and show you my my Addams Family books. The Addams Family, not the Addams Family as in the kooky, creepy family, but like as in John Adams and Abigail Adams and all my books of that. But then that would like make my bookshelf fall. I mean, not the physical shelf, but all my books remaining on the shelf would fall. So I'm just leaving those on there. But let me show you the ones I do have. Okay, you've already seen this. First, let me just show you which is. Oh, one more. I almost forgot about this book. You guys already saw this one. So we have American Brutus, which is about John Wilkes Booth, up to like when he commits the assassination of Lincoln. Which, oh my god, that guy had such an ego. He thought he was doing this country a favor. And by killing, and I actually almost got to talk to a customer about this. But then, of course, you're limited time because they want to go home, and you have other customers to serve. So I didn't really get to talk to this young man about it, which it's also very weird because he's younger than me. But I don't look my age. I look like I'm his age or maybe, younger than him. But it's very weird. Like, on the one hand, I get excited to talk to someone, especially if it's someone that's, like, either younger than me or close to my age, because, like, of course, but then it feels weird because I'm like, I'm older than you, and you probably don't realize that. And it just feels weird because and not thinking about, like, as far as just, the dynamic. But anyway. So I'm excited to read that. But anyway, yeah. So I was talking to this kid briefly about it. It's so, listening to the podcast and also listening to a podcast about the assassination and just talking about how John Wilkes Booth just thought himself a hero for assassinating Lincoln. It was just like, dude, you just ruined your life, and you're not a savior. Like, people will mourn Lincoln for a long time, and then you guys, I just showed you this, and I read the back of this one. This is the biography by Carl Sandburg, so this will be fun to read. Okay, and then here's the Gettysburg book that I have, and 1-volume history of Gettysburg. Where is the Stephen W. Sears is the author. So this is the only book like I said, when I was at the Outpost, there were quite a few books in the nonfiction section that were about Lincoln and Gettysburg. So it was really interesting to read that, to look at, but I was like, I already have a book on Gettysburg, so maybe one day I'll get those books. My goal was to see if I could find a biography on Lincoln, and I did. So it'll be really cool to read this. But I am still not used to reading books this size, so it'll be a struggle for me to come in. And then this last book, I got this one a couple years ago. Oh, and it's the Lincoln Library. So I wonder, like, is there, I don't know about this, like, because I've never really been, I've seen and I've been to DC, Washington, DC, in the Lincoln Memorial, and I've gone up those steps and everything and been near the giant statue of Lincoln sitting in the chair. Imagine, like, if you could bring back John Wilkes Booth, like, you could have a time machine and bring him from the past to the present and show him, guess what? You just made Lincoln a martyr. They made a statue of him, so your plan to assassinate has just blown up in your face. But anyway, like, I always think about that, showing, like, if I could take these figures from the past and show them how far we've come. Although, right now, they might not be happy with our situation. the way things are going right now, and how half our country is not happy with our current president. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to talk about politics. I'm just showing, I just am reading like history. So this book, you guys have already seen it, and it's a Pulitzer Prize winner, actually. This is Team of Rivals, The Political Genius of Abraham Lincoln by Doris Kearns Goodwin. So from what I remember, and this also got a Lincoln, there was apparently a Lincoln Prize. So apparently, okay, so the other reason why I brought the statues is because there's this little picture of the statue of the memorial, and I'm wondering if you can go inside of there. Is there like a gift shop in that if on the other side if there's a place where you can go inside? I don't know, but I've never been inside. I've never been on the other side of that. I've only seen, gone up the steps and everything. But anyway, so I think, but I wonder if there's a gift shop where you can get books like this. It'd probably be more expensive though. Oh, so this is a biography, but it focuses on Lincoln's mastery of men and how it shaped the most significant presidency in the nation's history. Okay, so this is another biography, but just on a specific aspect of Lincoln's life. Yeah, I haven't looked at this in a while. That's the only reason. Like, I know, so I didn't remember what it was about specifically. So this is another project I could do, is all these books on, on this aspect of the Civil War. These books are heavy, and particularly focus on Lincoln. Okay, so these are heavy books, so I'm going to put them down. Okay, and then we have, like I said, we have another, you all know about the John Adams one, but I'm not going to show those to you, because then if I take them all on the shelf, my other books remaining will get knocked down. So I'd rather do that, So I maybe do a little separate little mini video to show you all those. Okay, so then we have my Jefferson collection that I've started that I can do. So we have this biography that I did start reading it's Jefferson: A Life by Willard Stern Randall, and I think Willard Stern Randall also wrote about the life of John Adams as well. That might be the one that I've been wanting to get. He also has that, that might be that one. So I've read a little bit. I've learned a little bit about his childhood and his relationship with his mother. How he looked up to his father, and how his relationship with his mother was mixed and kind of antagonistic. And of course, he loves reading. They talked a little bit about that. And what he did, and now I'm kind of at the chapters where what he does, his school years and all that. So I need to read this. Get back to this. And then we have, so this one was another one I started, this one, and I saw this, again, a copy of this one at the Outpost. And that's actually where I bought this. The Character of Thomas Jefferson, an American Sphinx. So this is by Joseph J. Ellis, and this is talking about why we love Jefferson so much, and is he a really good, a good president? Like it says, he certainly is the most elusive, and I think it just kind of explores who he is as a person, in a more specific kind of way, unlike the biographies which cover the person's whole life. And then this one, now, unfortunately, my copy of this one does have, has a situation where someone, I think the last owner of this book, the picture part, all the some of these books have pictures in them. I think that person tried to cut these pictures out, take these pictures out, but it is a good chunk of the book is in here, so of the actual words, so I need those in there. And I don't know if there was, I'm kind of annoyed if it turns out there's a hardback book there, but I also kind of don't want to, send this book back so that someone else has to deal. I feel like that wouldn't be fair to make someone else have to deal with these. But this is Thomas Jefferson, The Art of Power by John Meacham. And let me look at the back again because I don't remember. Okay, so this is a biography. John Meacham brings vividly to life an extraordinary man in his remarkable times, giving us Thomas Jefferson, the man, the politician, and the president. A founder whose understanding of power and human nature enabled him to move men and martial ideas, to learn from them his mistakes and to prevail. Jefferson was passionate about many things: women, his family, science, architecture, gardening, Monticello, Paris, and more. He strove, despite fierce opposition, to realize his vision, the creation, survival, and success of despite fierce opposition to realize his vision, the success of popular government in America, drawing on archives in the United States, England, and France, as well as unpublished transcripts of Jefferson's presidential papers. Meacham shows us the personal Jefferson, a man of appetite, sensuality, and passion. He also presents Jefferson as the most successful political leader of the early republic and perhaps in all American history, a leader who found the means to endure and to win. His story resonates today not least because he led his nation through ferocious partisanship amid economic change and eternal external threats. Jefferson also embodies an internal drama, the struggle of leadership of the nation to achieve greatness in a difficult and confounding world. So these are all my Jefferson books that I have that I'm excited to read at some point. So this could be another project. Last, I have one more to go. Okay, so now we have there was actually another book on this person that I saw at the bookstore, but I decided not to get that one. Plus it was an ARC. So, So we have Washington by Douglas Southall Freeman. This is his biography. Washington is the most complete, definitive, one-volume biography of George Washington ever written. In 1948, renowned biographer and military historian Douglas Southall Freeman won his second Pulitzer Prize for his new dramatic re-examination of George Washington. For years, biographies have gone from idolatry to muckraking their depictions of the somewhat marbleized founding father. Freeman's new interpretation was a fresh step, making Washington a living, breathing individual, flawed but heroic, and also an able commander who defeated the British Empire against incredible odds. Washington proved to be just as adept as wielding political power and adroitly steered our new loosely called nation through the first stormy years of our unproven federal stewardship and the first two presidential administrations. Here with an introduction by Pulitzer Prize winner Michael Kamen, who puts the writing and publication of Washington into perspective. Okay, I'm not going to read all that. So it's not the Ron Jerome, because I know Ron Jerome also has written a biography on Washington. He's the guy who wrote the Hamilton biography. But yeah, so this is a Washington biography. And then we have, this one is The First Conspiracy, The Secret Plot to Kill George Washington. I've read a Brad Meltzer book before. And I think he was the same guy who wrote The Secret Six, Washington Spies. And actually the other book I think might have been about that as well, the book I saw. But this is, I did not know there was a secret plot to kill Washington, but that shouldn't be a surprise to me because of course there was. And I think England might have already had a spy system before Washington came up with his. And I think that's what motivated him to come up with his. I think. But this is a book that covers the whole people trying to kill George Washington. And I thought that'd be really cool to read about, really interesting. To, and why Washington escaped this, why they weren't unsuccessful with that. I shouldn't use the word successful because I wouldn't have wanted it to happen anyway. But yes. So in 1776, an elite group of soldiers were handpicked to serve as George Washington's bodyguards. Washington trusted and relied on them, but unbeknownst to him, some of the guards were part of a treasonous plan. In the early months of the Revolutionary War, these traitorous soldiers, along with the governor of New York and the mayor of New York City, launched a deadly scheme against the most important member of the military, George Washington himself. This is a tale of leaders, liars, and counterfeiters, and jailhouse confessors, and the dangerous machinations that played out in the tumultuous days leading up to July 4th, 1776. In this historical page-turner, Brad Meltzer and Josh Mensch unravel the secret plot against Washington and reveal the shocking true story behind what has previously been a footnote in pages of history. I think that'd be so much fun to learn about this and to find out what happened. And I think it'd be fun to read these two together. And then the last book that is is George Washington's War, the Saga of the American Revolution. So this would apply to, I feel like, everything, actually. At least the Revolution. Not the Civil War stuff, not the stuff about Lincoln, but the whole Revolutionary War stuff. In the lively style, this retelling the story of the American Revolution draws vivid portraits of the war's principles and summarizes the principal battles in lucid fashion. And superb depictions of the British leaders and the British home front, Lecky also adds details rarely found in popular American histories. And unlike some historians, he doesn't neglect the Southern War, the battles of Camden, Cowpens, and Kings Mountain. Oh, okay, so that was a Kirkus Reviews. So these are all, so I don't know if there's it looks like there's not an actual description of what this, we know what it's about, but sometimes these books have, descriptions of what it covers. So again, this will be really fun to read. I don't know what I want to go to right now, though. I'm interested in all these books. But I wouldn't know where to start. Where to go next. I feel like I should come back to the ones that I've already started and get those out of the way. Get those read. Not to rush those, but get back to those. The ones I've already, like that biography of Jefferson. But, so I just need to go through all these and see which ones I should prioritize and organize them in a way. But anyway. Okay, and like I said, there's also my books on John Adams as well, and his family I have, but like I said, I don't want to take those off the shelf because then my other books would fall and make a mess. So anyway, so yeah, like I said, I want to redo this video, and because I feel like I want to do it better, and I feel like this was a little bit better. It still wasn't completely organized. It was a little bit more organized than the last time I filmed this. But anyway, so I hope you guys like this. And are you interested in any of these parts in history at all, in any of these subjects? I would love to know that. And I hope you are currently enjoying your reading, whatever that is, even if it's not related to this history. And as I've asked before, are there any aspects of history that you like reading about, even if it's not one of these? I would again, I would love to know. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye!